All right, so this is another bad movie review. This is going to be on Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. This is a controversial one. Like, there's certain people that like it, and certain people that really don't like it. People have built whole channels over hating it. Um, so, yeah, this is a controversial one. I did not like it in theater, and I still don't like it, but I don't know, I don't hate it, I wouldn't say. The Force Awakens, I still like, but it has problems. It's way too close to the A New Hope to the point where certain scenes feel like they were just doing the exact same scene, like just a new version of it. So I do understand why some people like this movie, just because it tries to do some new things. I mean, there's still some things that are clearly taken from the original trilogy, but it does try to do its own thing for the most part. So I do understand that. So obviously this came out in 2017, and it's written and directed by Ryan Johnson. Before Starkiller Base was destroyed, they took out the Republic with what is essentially the new version of the Death Star that takes out multiple planets instead of one. um, and so they took out the Republic. So now I guess they can just, kind of do their thing and like send out their military might to take over the rest of the galaxy. And that's kind of what they're doing. But they're also going after the Resistance base, and so they destroy that, and the Resistance has to kind of get away. Poe takes on the Dreadnought. Some bombers get killed and stuff like that, but they end up taking it out. The Resistance, they get away. They go to light speed, but they're running out of fuel, and the First Order is right with them right after they get out of light speed, because there's new tech now. Because we need a plot for this movie, where they can track the Resistance in Lightspeed. Rey is on this other planet with Luke still. She goes to give him the lightsaber. He throws it to the side, right? That was a big thing in The Force Awakens, and I guess they wanted to subvert expectations with that, so he just throws it out. Even though I think it makes sense for him to throw it away because, I mean, he did exile himself, so clearly there was a reason for that because he doesn't want to get in the fight, obviously. So that part of it I thought was fine. I got a little bit of a chuckle when he threw it, but the obvious thing is for him to be like, "Where'd you get this from? I lost this years ago." I mean, I don't know. That still hasn't been explained how they got that lightsaber.
I will never train another generation of Jedi. I came to this island to die. It's time for the Jedi to end.
She's trying to get him to train her, but he thinks the Jedi should end, and so he doesn't really want to do it. But he eventually starts training her in the Force. She goes right towards the dark side or whatever, which kind of scares him. And she has this link with Kylo Ren, all of a sudden. And so they're starting to kind of get closer and things like that. And she finds out what really happened between Luke and Kylo and what turned him to the dark side. Kylo tries to kill Leia, tries to blow her out of the main ship, the Resistance ship, but he can't do it. He's still conflicted after he killed Han Solo. So another, TIE fighter or whatever did it, blew her and Admiral Akbar, pretty much all the commanding officers, off the bridge, I guess. And somehow she survives the explosion and space, and uses the Force to get back on the ship. But she gets, she passes out right after that. Admiral Holdo, Vice Admiral Holdo, with the purple hair, for some reason, she she takes over command, but she won't tell Poe Dameron or any of the other people what the plan is. So eventually a mutiny happens, but before that, Finn wakes up and he meets his character Rose, played by Kelly Marie Tran, and they're gonna do this other, they'll go on this other mission to try to turn the tracker off of of the main ship, the main Star Destroyer. So they go to another planet to do that and stuff like that. I'll talk more about that subplot later. The plan all along was for them to all get on transports and go to another planet, like this old rebel base on the planet Crate. Kylo Ren kills Snoke in a really goofy way, and they team up to fight some guards, which is actually kind of cool. And there's some other stuff with that. She turns out to be nobody, and they split up still, even though they seem like they're gonna maybe work together. They fight over the lightsaber. She goes away to help the Resistance on Crate. Luke decides to project himself down to Crate to help them, buy some time. Finn almost gives his life, and then has like one of the worst on-screen kisses of all time with Rose. And they get away, as a result of Ray lifting up some rocks to help them leave. And I guess that's all. I guess that's like the main things that happen in this. There are some positives here. I know a lot of people hate this movie. It's well shot, for one. Great cinematography. There's some really, really nice shots in this. Like the Haldo maneuver where she, for whatever, however, goes into light speed and hits those Star Destroyers. That was a nice shot. And Luke's death and things like that. I mean, it is a very well-made movie. The score is really good, even though it's kind of cheesy in certain moments. There's some exciting fight scenes. Poe versus the Dreadnought. Kylo Ren and Rey versus the guards, even though that has bad choreography if you slow it down. She kicks one person and like four of them fly off or something. It's bad if you slow it down, but it is exciting. And they do set up some interesting things in here, like Kylo being like, you know what, screw the rebels, Empire, all that stuff, just join me, we'll do our own thing. But they don't actually follow through with that, so I guess that's too bad. And Rey being nobody, right? Like, I don't like that you set it up during Force Awakens, but I actually like that Rey is nobody because, not everybody needs to be related to somebody. I'm kind of on that side of things. The acting is all great. The direction is great. Mark Hamill is easily I think the best actor in this, which is kind of crazy because he's the main person that does not like this movie, doesn't like where they took his character, but he's a professional, man. He comes to work, and he's definitely good in this movie.
The legacy of the Jedi is failure. Hypocrisy, hubris.
That's not true.
At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out. It was a Jedi Master who was responsible for the training and creation of Darth Vader.
I'm okay with characters changing. Like, I'm completely on Luke's side when it comes to the failures of the Jedis. I talked about that with the prequels a lot. But it still doesn't work, The character that was willing to lay down his life rather than strike down his father, Darth Vader, is about to maybe, or at least thinks about killing his nephew in his sleep just because he might turn to the dark side. It doesn't work, right? It doesn't fit the character. It's completely wrong for the character. And they didn't make that believable. If you could have made that believable in some way, maybe, but they didn't. So even though I like that plot as the main plot that like kept my interest, it's definitely still not very good because of that part of it. That's it for positives. We can talk about the main plot in a second, but man, this out of place comedy, it's really not good.
Look, I can't hold forever. If you reach him, tell him Leia has an urgent message for him.
I believe he's tooling with you, sir.
About his mother.
You have a Yo Mama joke earlier on with Poe Dameron, which doesn't fit. He's always been kind of a comedic character, kind of a smartass, or kind of sarcastic or whatever, but yeah, that definitely didn't work. The movie stops dead for moments like that. I mean, it's like sitcom level, like situational comedy, like with Rey and those creatures that work on that planet with Luke. BB-8 having coins put into him so he can shoot at other people. Ridiculous things like that. The lady that's like screaming, ah, the weird alien lady when they're riding those horses or whatever in Canto Bight. It doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work.
I feel something.
You feel it?
Yes, I feel it.
That's the Force.
Really?
Wow, it must be really strong
Oh,
with
I've
you.
never felt any... Ow!
The dialogue just in general really is really bad in certain parts, like let's go Chrome Dome when Finn was taking on Captain Phasma, and they say hope a lot too. I noticed it's like Poe Dameron is like, oh come on, tell us the plan, we need hope, and Leia at the end is like, oh I guess the Resistance and the galaxy have no hope. It's like, Jesus, man, it's like they're like have the shakes, like, come on man, I need that hope. I'm dying here. With the main plot, it feels like there's some bad writing here, because for one, the First Order just lost Starkiller Base. That should be a huge hit to their military might. Apparently not, because they're just ready to go take out the Resistance base. The whole thing of being able to track in light speed all of a sudden just for this movie because we need the plot to happen. The Holdo thing of if you could hit things in light speed, not only would it have happened already, not only would it have been utilized already probably, but you would be running into a lot of things probably if you could actually hit something at light speed. But even after they've just done that, the First Order is still ready to go. They're right there on crate, ready to go with Death Star tech. It's crazy. It feels like whatever needs to happen for this plot, whatever we need to happen, it doesn't matter whether it makes sense in Star Wars or just even in this movie, we're gonna make it happen. Canto Bite is probably one of the worst subplots I've ever seen. It's a complete non sequitur. It doesn't really matter to anything. If Captain Phasma didn't die, and she was still alive in Rise of Skywalker, it would be completely inconsequential. Like, honestly, like, you could just take it out completely, and Finn and Rose could have just stayed with him, would have changed nothing. They free those horses, but don't free the kids. I mean, there's that thing. Benicio del Toro's character, I guess it's DJ, absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what they were going for with that. It's like he broke into the movie from another movie. It's crazy. He's so out of place. It's all of it. BB-8 taking over one of the walkers and like taking out everything to save them at the end. It's so bad, right? I mean, think of the conceit of this, right? We're in the middle of a life or death thing in space. We're gonna send two people to a random planet, a casino planet, with a bunch of rich people that got rich off of war profiteering or whatever, and with slaves and all this other stuff going on. We're gonna send them down there to go to a casino to find some random guy with like a rose or whatever it is on his lapel, so that he can then get them onto the main ship, the main Star Destroyer, so that they can then find this tracker and turn it off for just enough time for us to finally get away. This is all while we're being shot at, taken out, and while we're like dangerously low on fuel.
A stormtrooper and a who now are doing what?
You would come up with some other plan other than that. It's obviously not going to work, but it's not even 100% their fault or Poe's fault for coming up with it, because they were given no choice because of Admiral Haldo, Vice Admiral Haldo. She doesn't tell Poe the plan. Obviously, that makes sense. He's a hothead, right? That's always the excuse. Well, you're not going to tell him. He's a hothead. He just got people killed. I get that, right? I agree. You don't need to tell him anything. That's fine. It would be nice to, because he would be a nice asset. You can keep him in line, maybe, but she didn't tell anyone. Like, when he finally does that mutiny, he's not the only one. It's other people there, too. It's because they're worried about not only their own lives, but the resistance. So, of course, they're going to be like, okay, you're not telling us anything, and it's seeming like you're putting us towards like a suicide mission. So we think you're incompetent, and so we're going to take over. I mean, like, that's just what it is. I mean, I was in the military. My worst leaders in the military were people who didn't speak or communicate well to the people underneath them, right? Like, you have to lead. That's how you lead. And it's just waiting on the allies for the resistance. It's like, what allies do they have? I mean, they're not fighting against like an oppressive government. They almost act like they are. They almost act like the First Order is the Empire, but they're not. They don't have any actual power. They're just now starting to get it after taking out the Republic. So where are these allies? Were they just allies left over from the rebellion? I mean, this might as well still be the rebellion, but that part of it didn't really make sense for me. A lot of it doesn't. Yoda coming down to take out this old place with the text, with the old Jedi text and everything, where he's just laughing the whole way. He kind of looks like he seems like a little too goofy for Yoda. It's almost like I've heard somebody say this before. It is almost like his goofy character that he was pretending to be in Empire Strikes Back. It doesn't really feel like Yoda. And then he comes down and he says these like kind of generic things. Like he comes down, he says something wise, and what it turns out to be is like, failures are the best lessons, or something like that. We learn the most from our failures, or something. I think I'm done, right? There's one moment that really got to me, that I really didn't like. And it's kind of a fan service moment, it's a cheap moment, and even a character says that. So there's a moment, mind you, we don't even get to see Luke really react to Han's death, which is kind of upsetting, but Luke goes on the Millennium Falcon. I think that was in the trailer too. It feels like it was mostly for the trailer. He goes on the Millennium Falcon and he plays around with some dice because that's huge in the Star Wars fandom, right? The dice that was on the Millennium Falcon. Not as far as I know. I've never cared about those dice. But whatever. He sits down on the Millennium Falcon, and then R2-D2 wakes up because R2-D2 is a plot device. They never use R2-D2 in this trilogy other than for the plot. He wakes up out of nowhere to give the rest of the map to Luke in Force Awakens. He wakes up out of nowhere in here to spur Luke on to train Rey. But he wakes up and he goes up to Luke and he starts playing the old recording of Leia from A New Hope.
Years ago, you served my father in the Clone Wars. Now he begs you to help him in his struggle against the Empire. I regret that I am unable to present my father's request
That
to
was
his
a cheap move.
It just feels so damn cheap. It was making me cringe. It made my skin crawl. I was like, man, this is just so forced. That the fact that he would even still have that recording that's already kind of far fetched after all this time. But you're not even using it in a way that would really make that much sense because after that he's just giving these mediocre training lessons to Rey. I mean, I feel like if you'd have used that as a moment to get him to do something at the end when he projects himself to Crate, I feel like that would have worked a little bit better. Because then it would be like, okay, I have to do this for Leia like I did all those years ago, right? I have to protect my sister. But instead, it's just so that he can, like, give these lessons to Rey while also still telling her, yeah, the Jedi still need to die. I'm still not getting involved in this. I don't know, it just felt really, really cheap to me. The storytelling is just bad. It just is. There's writing choices in this that don't make sense. And it doesn't work. And even the plot that I actually did like still doesn't work because of the writing. So because of that, I feel more like it's in the mediocre realm. So I'm going to give it a rental, which is what I would have given it back in 2017 when it first came out. It's watchable. It has some really exciting moments and things like that if you're just looking for cool Star Wars stuff. And some interesting ideas that they don't really follow through with. But the writing is it's just not good. It's at least not good enough for me. So that's The Last Jedi. And I'm going to do Rise of Skywalker, but I don't know when that'll be. That'll be pretty soon. And yeah, that's it. I'm done.